Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of our channel Legally Bound. We are now into the second part of our labor laws, and in this, we are taking now part 2 of the Code of Wages 2019. In the part 1, which you might have seen earlier, I have gone into details of various definitions given under section 2 of the act and also about non-discrimination on the basis of gender in section 3. Only those two things were discussed. Now in this particular episode or video, we are discussing the minimum wages under the Code of Wages 2019. Minimum wages are the minimum wages required to be paid to any person for the work done. You can never pay below the minimum wages. But what are minimum wages? Earlier it was described in the Minimum Wages Act. Now it has come here in the Code of Wages 2019. Let's understand Section 5 of the Code of Wages. Section 5 of the Code of Wages 2019 prohibits an employer to pay to his employee any wages which is less than the minimum rate of wages notified by the appropriate government. Who is an appropriate government? The appropriate government may be the state government or the central government, depending on what your establishment is. We have learned what an employer is, what an employee is, what is a wages. Alright. Now we have also had a glimpse of what an appropriate government is. All this in our previous video, part 1 of the Code of Wages 2019. But here there is one small point which has to be noted. That is, first, the central government will fix a floor rate throughout the country. Possibly it will be vary between region to region or from employment to employment, but the floor rate will be decided by the central government. And based on that, the state government will decide what will be their minimum wages. It cannot be lower than what has been decided by the central government. But the state government can definitely pay higher depending on the state. It may be a very developed state required for payment of higher wages, or it may be a state where it is necessary that the wages are controlled so that more industries can develop. Various pros and cons are there. So the minimum wage rate of wage will be decided by the state government, which will be equal to or higher than the floor rate decided by the central government. And no employer can pay less than the rate decided by the appropriate government. Now let us look at section 6 of the Code of Wages 2019. The minimum wage rate is to be fixed by the appropriate government, and this can be based either on the time work basis or piecework basis. Now further on it says that the time can be fixed on the following wage period, that is by the hour, by the day, or by the month. That means it is so many rupees per hour, or so many rupees per day, or so many rupees per month. And here I'd like to add that for piecework, in case of piecework, for example making of BDs, the underlying factor will always be the time. So in case you want to make one bundle of BDs, it will require a particular time period to make that BD. So the piece rate will be fixed on the time basis, but will be given or quantified as on piece rate basis. Now what happens in case an employee works for less than a normal working day? A minimum rate of wages has been fixed under this code for that particular employment. And this employee does not work for the full day on the basis of which this minimum wages has been calculated. So In such case, unless it's otherwise provided, the employee or the worker will get full pay for a normal working day, even if the person has not worked throughout the day or throughout the normal day. We'll try to understand what the exceptions are. The exception is this, that the person is not entitled to receive wage for a full working day or a full normal working day where the failure to work is caused by his unwillingness to work. That means he is there, the work is there, the employer is there to demand work, but he says, I am not willing to work. Or he is there, the employer is there, but there is no work. And there will be certain other circumstances also which the government will prescribe in its rules. So in such cases where there are these exceptions, you will not get work, you will not get your wages for the full day. Otherwise, minimum wages for the full day will be given to the person whether there is work or not and the person is available to work. Now, how do you fix the hours of work for a normal working day? Alright, so what will happen? Under this code, the minimum rate of wages will be fixed by the basis of the number of hours which will constitute a normal working day. This normal working day may have one or two intervals or more intervals. For example, there may be a 10-minute tea or coffee break somewhere in the middle of the day. There may be half an hour lunch break or another 10 minutes for tea and coffee in the afternoon. These are the specified intervals which is possible, and then the entire day may comprise of 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, or a minimum starting period and latest ending period will be there, on the basis of which minimum rate of wages will be decided. Now, another thing which has to be borne in mind, if you look at the other code, they have also defined what a week is. Here it says that in every 7 days there will be one rest day. That means after working for 6 days, the 7th day will be day of rest. And mind you, the minimum wages are to be paid even for the day of rest. That means if you work for 6 days, you will get paid for 7 days. So under the minimum wages, like I understand there's a misunderstanding among the various employers, is that you have to pay only for 26 days in a month. No, you have to pay for the 7th day for a person who has completed 6 days with full wages. You have to pay even on the 7th day. And in case due to some reason this employee is called to work on the day of his rest, then you have to pay to that person at an overtime rate. That means you will not be paying minimum wages, but you will be paying an overtime rate on the day of rest. Alright, we'll go into the other codes which will tell whether a person can work continuously throughout the month for all the 30 days, yes or no. We'll go on the other code, that is the safety code, which will be there, which will tell very clearly whether you can employ him for a larger period. As it stands here, a day will be consisting of the number of hours. There will be specific intervals in between, certain breaks, and then like presently you cannot work continuously for more than 5 hours without taking a break. So like that there will be some small breaks, and then there will be a day of rest after in every period of 7 days. And in case the employee is required to work on a day of rest, he will be paid the overtime rate, and overtime rate will be not less than double the actual rate or the minimum rate. Now we will talk about where it is necessary that certain exceptions will have to be considered. What if the employee is engaged in an emergency work which you cannot foresee or prevent? Might be there is a fire and the employee cannot say that I have to stop working, my period of work is over. No, you cannot. So if it's an emergency, then you will have to work accordingly. Now, for example, you are into a preparatory work. That means after you complete your work, somebody else can start working. Or you are in a complementary work. That means you are doing the finishing touches and closing. Now, this is to be carried out outside the limits laid in the general working of the employment concerned. So, if there are certain things which are to be done, then you have to do it, and it may exceed your normal working day. There are more sub exceptions like that. That is, when your employment is essentially intermittent. We'll understand what is the meaning of intermittent slightly later. So, if your employment is intermittent, then that fixing of normal working hours per day will not be applicable to you. And now, there may be for some technical reasons, you have to complete the work and then only you can say your duty is over. A simple example is, you are in a plane, the pilot and the crew are with you. And until the plane is landed and the doors are opened and you are permitted to leave, the pilots and the crew cannot say that our work time is over or the time and duty limitations are over. So, this is a technical reason where they have to complete their duty before stopping work. Now, suppose there is a flood or there is a fire or certain action of nature and you cannot say that no, my work is time is over or my time is not starting. You have to work because the action of natural forces are irregular. So if you are engaged in such type of work and which depends on natural forces, then you cannot fix your hours of work or a normal working day. Now, what is the meaning of intermittent? Intermittent means you are available, but work is not there. And whenever there is work, you will start working. For example, let us take, there is a digging by the pickaxe and there is a shovel or a spade from which you take the mud. Unless the mud is dug and the earth loosened, you cannot carry away the loosened earth. So now what happens? You are having two employees. One is for digging, one is for using a spade and carrying away the soil or the loose earth. Now it is intermittent. So time will be there that you are there, but you are not physically active and your sustained attention to the work is not necessary. So this is called intermittent work, where your presence is necessary, but not necessarily that you will have a physical activity or you will be concentrating solely on the work at that given time. Example again, pilots, they are working, yes, but you are also aware that planes can fly in auto mode, yes, and when planes are flying in auto mode, the pilots will rest, but it is for them a normal working day. Okay. A very short video this is, so let us understand what is the meaning of wages for overtime work. Earlier we saw that if you are working on a day of your rest, you should get a minimum overtime rate. So what is the minimum overtime rate? The minimum overtime rate is not less than twice the normal rate of wages. That means, can I pay 300% of the wages as overtime? Yes, you may. 300, 400, 500, you may even pay 10 times, but not less than 2 times. So in case you are required to work for a longer than the wage period as may be prescribed. Now whenever the word says as may be prescribed, it means as prescribed as per the rules. So if the rules prescribe that you can work only for 8 hours and you have worked for 10 hours, then for the remaining 2 hours you are required to be paid at a overtime rate. That means you have to be paid for 4 hours or a half day's salary, half day's normal salary. So that is the overtime rate. So if the rate has been fixed for every hour or part of the hour, even if you work 5 minutes extra, you are eligible for a full hour's rate of wages. I want you to, of course, you can exempt the employer, say that okay, 5 minutes chalega, doesn't matter, but yes, you are entitled for overtime wages for the entire hour for even having worked for 5 minutes. So whether it is an hour or a part of an hour, you will get an overtime wage, or you are entitled to get an overtime. Whether the employer pays or not, that's a totally different matter. But you are entitled to receive the overtime rate, which is not less than twice the normal rate of wages. Now, I have earlier told you that I am not looking into offences and penalties, because I expect all the employers to whom this code is applicable to be compliant with the law. And once you are compliant with the law, there is no need for knowing about offences and penalties. So, keeping this firmly in mind, I want you to stay with me with the next video, which will come up in some time, and in that video we will be taking further about the payment of wages. Until such time, please don't be stingy. Share this video with all your friends, colleagues, professionals, and don't forget to hit the like button and also give your comments, and don't forget to hit the notification button after subscribing to this video. Till the next video, see you there.